Hi, welcome back to Wade into Wealth. I am Chuck Wade. My brother is here, Ethan Wade, unless there has been a change in your name that I forgot.
Nope.
I want to talk to you today. I want to ask you a question first. Do you know how close the U.S. Capitol came to being relocated to Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
Nope, never even heard of this one bit.
Yeah, okay. Well,
how close?
And
when was this?
This would have been late 1700s.
Oh, okay. Wasn't
when
around.
The United States was still in its infancy, and the capital was in Philadelphia. It was going to be moved either to Lancaster or a town outside, town outside of Philadelphia. And the reason it ended up in Washington, D.C., and not Pennsylvania or a more northern state is that Alexander Hamilton negotiated with Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. I think it was called the Residence Act of 1790, for the capital to be located in a southern state in exchange for a reworking of the federal government's ability to incorporate states' debt and state finances, so the southern states could be used to help pay off the northern states' war debts from the Revolutionary War.
Look at that.
Hence why the federal government has such power when it comes to the economy and when it comes to debt in the United States. Also learned that seeing Hamilton. However, I did confirm all that with my own personal research.
Good. I'm glad you did.
Well, here we are again now, however many hundreds of years later, talking yet again about the United States debt and the debt ceiling, which we bumped up against on last Thursday, January 19th, meaning the United States now carries a debt burden of, drumroll please, $31.4 trillion.
Just a small amount.
Small amount. So even though we hit the debt ceiling, that does not mean there has been a default yet. The federal government has implemented extraordinary measures.
I prefer to keep it that way.
Yeah, no, listen.
That the U.S. government not default on their debt.
Well, we have yet to do so. And by we, they have yet to do so. You and I have not been in charge of this. But they've been implementing these extraordinary measures, such as suspending new investments into the Civil Service Retirement Fund, Postal Retirement Benefit, Health Care Fund. They are no longer having contributions made into them. They'll be made whole at some point. But that is why we have not seen a default, and the government is still able to fund its obligations. So it seems like this has been happening on a more recent basis.
Well, I think
why is it such
just
a big
happened
deal?
a couple years ago.
2021 actually happened 2
and
years
maybe a
ago, and then in
handful of years before
2017.
then.
Yeah.
Well, it's a huge deal if the United States really cannot default on its debt. At least we would hope that to not be the case.
Right.
Because if you're in the military, that means you wouldn't get paid. Social Security wouldn't get paid. Medicare and Medicaid wouldn't be available. So there's a long-standing effect that would go down kind of the chain with the United States defaulting on its debt, and it would have wide-ranging effects throughout probably every family in America in some capacity or some way or another, and not necessarily in a positive way.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, if you are a postal service worker or a government employee, you work in the military, you have bills to pay every month too.
Yep.
And so if there is not a salary, or even someone who's on a fixed income that's retired, just receiving Social Security or needing Social Security to live on a regular basis. Now, maybe are your bills not able to be paid, and there is a ripple down there that happens.
But from an investment perspective, the United States is widely considered one of the most secure and stable financial institutions in the world. And that would certainly call that into question when pretty much every other country kind of looks to the United States of America and our financial system to help set a number of everything else.
And on a collective basis, that would be the biggest deal, because if the government were to default, yes, there may be a stop on payments and benefits. At some point, that would resume. And at some point, there would likely be retroactive pay of the benefits that were missed.
Right.
You would hope there would be. But it would be that shake to, or the punch to the gut of the status of the U.S. economy being seen as a beacon for stability around the world. It would also have a significant impact in the stock market. It absolutely would. Markets do not like uncertainty. We beat that drum all the time, and this would be a huge qualifier of uncertainty,
Absolutely.
and especially something that has not happened before.
We hope to keep it that way.
Yeah. So why is it now? Because now we're at this point where, all right, we've hit the debt ceiling. There needs to be some adjustment made. How can this be resolved? Or what are some of the possible solutions to this?
Well, we're going to have to find some middle ground between our Republican and Democratic parties.
Yes.
I think, perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, but both in 2021 and in 2017, when the debt limit ceiling had been reached, the decision factors all resided within the same party.
Yes.
And that obviously makes it a little bit easier. This time is not that case. And so, or this is not that case. And so you have Republicans on one side, Democrats on the other, and some posturing and, for lack of a better term, a game of chicken to see where can we meet in the middle or what concessions can get made so that we can raise the debt limit.
That is so very often one of the biggest things is each side pointing its finger at the other side.
It's always
saying,
the other
it's your
side's fault.
It's your fault. The thing that in 2021 and 2017 that helped this to be resolved, I think, a little easier or a little quicker is that neither party, neither the Republicans, which it was in 2017, or the Democratic Party, as it was in 2021, want to be seen as the ones responsible for for a default.
Yep.
Nobody wants to have that on them. That because that's just such a gross error in governmenting, in the responsibilities of our government. Now, however, the president is a Democrat. The Senate has nominal control, or the Democrats have nominal control in the Senate, one vote, and the House of Representatives is controlled by the Republican Party, albeit a fairly fractured Republican Party, as was seen as Kevin McCarthy took 15 ballots to be nominated as Speaker of the House. So it is a different situation. It's a little different scenario. I still think it's likely that a deal is done or agreed upon simply because...
who wants to tell Social Security recipients, hey, your check's not coming this month?
No, neither.
Or the military, or the postal, any of these federal workers.
Nobody does.
No.
Nobody does.
No,
So,
and we've had to do this a lot. I mean, we've raised the debt ceiling. Well, not we, but the debt ceiling has been raised almost 80 times.
yeah.
It's just part of the regular federal budget process.
Very often it has. It's almost been just something that needs to get stamped at the end is
Yeah.
that the debt ceiling is increased. But now we're in one of these scenarios where the government has to make some sort of a deal. What's interesting to note, I think, when it comes to the debt ceiling and talking about how do we get here, the debt ceiling is not referring to new spending.
Right.
It's referring to budget items that are already in the budget. It's not saying we want to increase spending, we want to put this new bill into law that's going to spend trillions of dollars. These dollars have already been spent and already been accounted for. The great irony in all of this, because if you want to simplify this, you think of your household or any household, is that you have expenses. The government has expenses, salaries, military salaries, Social Security, various programs, and you have money coming in. Now, in our case, that would be salary or income that you earn. In the case of the government, that's tax revenue. That's where they get money from. I think 2001 was the last time there was a surplus. So
more than 21
years. So we just operated a deficit. This is like a household that's basically just running credit card debt up left and right, and just says, "Well, hey, can we get another card, or can we get an increase in our credit limit?" The difference is if you continue to do this as an individual, at a certain point, the bank says, "No,
Right,
you're out. You can't spend any more money." The federal government operates a little differently in that regard.
Yeah, and investors are still willing to lend their money to the United States government.
Right.
Largely probably because we never defaulted on our debt.
Yeah. So what do you think the biggest, I'm curious, just what do you think the biggest impact would be here to someone?
Well, I think obviously if you're a federal worker or a federal employee, you have a significant impact there. If you're receiving Social Security, there's a significant impact there. I'm neither one of those. No. So from my perspective, I think the biggest impact would be the destruction of trust and confidence in the United States as kind of the the North Star for pretty much every financial vehicle in the world.
That would be, I think, the largest, bigger picture
Yeah.
one. The other one that I think has the potential to impact a greater number of people is that if this were to continue, if there were to be a default, tax refunds
Mm-hmm.
are not going to be paid out. I believe tax
Yeah,
season
right.
started today.
I didn't even think about. I think
January 23rd.
Yep.
When we're recording this, so that's the biggest one to just about everyone, because a lot of people who get a tax refund almost
Yep.
expect that or live with the expectation of we're getting a refund this year. It's like and
But it doesn't mean that if you owe money that you can delay
You
sending
still
them the
have to
money.
pay.
That's still going to be due.
you still have to pay.
Always work that way.
Yeah, so some things to keep in mind, though. The U.S. government has never intentionally defaulted on its debt. Apparently, there was a point in time where a computer glitch led to something that was a very quick default that was unintentional and was rectified very soon.
I was wondering why you specifically used that word.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. But this is also something that is so often used as a bargaining tool. And in the social media age that we live in, if you get onto Twitter, which is, I think, primarily where this kind of arguing happens, you've got Congress members from both sides just haranguing the other side about the debt ceiling and how this is the other side's fault.
Right.
The reality is this has been a problem for a long time. This is also a way that politicians will often get concessions, get
Sure.
things approved, or get something they want by saying, look, all right, we'll raise the debt ceiling, but we need this. But we need this.
And I suspect that's
exchange.
exactly what we're going to see this time around.
Yeah, that's it's most likely the result. I don't know that saying it's not going to happen would be prudent, because I mean that when we're just putting the faith in our elected leaders, and honestly, I don't care which party you're a member of. I don't have a ton of faith.
Nope.
In it.
That makes two of us.
But if it were to happen, what are we likely? We talked a little bit. What are we likely to see? The first thing I would say, prepare yourself for, the markets are going to have a pretty significant negative reaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
To that. I don't think it would be down a point.
No, I think
down
we'd see a
percentage
significant
point.
amount of volatility. And from what you mentioned earlier is just the uncertainty of it all. You take the uncertainty and we think of the United States economy and our financial system, and it really is the stabilizing force for the globe. And you take that away and add an uncertainty to that, and I think that there are wide-reaching ramifications that will go a number of places.
Yeah, likely so. This is also where I say look at the market for clues sometimes. On Thursday, this past Thursday, the 19th, we technically hit the debt ceiling. We reached that $31.4 trillion number.
I think the market went down more than, or the Dow went down more than 600
yes,
points.
They were down. There was a strong negative reaction. It was down more than 600 points. So what is that? 2%?
Yeah,
Down
give or
about
take,
2%, which even I would suggest the response, if we were to actually default, would be much.
Yeah,
Which
I
would
think so.
likely be a lot greater. Friday markets were up 1%. The Dow was up a percentage
Yeah, they
point.
made back 300 of the points.
And today, as we're recording this, the Dow's up about 250, 260 points. So as of right now, it does not appear the market is forecasting a default.
No, but the longer it goes, the more
Sure.
volatility we're going to see.
Sure.
And now I think the market probably looks and thinks, there'll be some grandstanding and some concessions will ultimately get made, but our politicians aren't so foolish to not be able to keep things going. We hope. But as it gets closer and as more days go by, that tone will start to change.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we can see a resolution sooner rather than later.
I think what's interesting to me and that I'm most interested to see how it plays out is the fact that we do have more of a fractured government in terms of the legislative branch and the White House than we have in the past. And seeing how it took the Republican Party so long to reach a consensus just over electing a Speaker of the House, I wonder, are some of the folks who are a little more out on the extreme sides, either the far right or far left, are they able to hold things up? Are they looking to just cause trouble or get their name in the news or start something? That could have more of an impact than we would all probably want. So we shall see. It has not
remains to be
happened
seen, yeah.
before.
Let's prefer to keep it that way.
We hope it stays that way. And if something were to change, we'll, of course, continue to update with this and make this the focus of what we're here to speak about.
Yep.
That's it for this week. We'll continue more with the debt ceiling, as well as other topics of financial well-being that we think are of interest to you and of benefit to learn more about on Wade into Wealth.